if I came up to you in a pub one day and handed you this book and said, this will change the way you see nature, you'd probably have felt me a bit of a crank. But genuinely, this month's book, Braiding Sweetgrass, has completely changed my understanding of our existence alongside the natural world. So when I read this, I knew that it needed to be read with my feet in a stream, which, trust me, is probably not my natural environment. I'm not a regular dipper. I haven't chosen the best socks. I did say that it needed to be done with feet in the stream. Second sock, wobblier than the first. Good. Oh, nice cold water. So I wanted to read you how Robin finds a different understanding of the natural world and our relationship with it. There was a great deal of excitement about the class because for the first time every single fluent speaker in our tribe would be there as a teacher. When the speakers were called forward to the circle of folding chairs, they moved slowly, with canes and walkers and wheelchairs, only a few entirely under their own power. Oh, it's cold. I'm used to it. I counted them in as they filled the chairs. 9. 9 fluent speakers in the whole world. Our language, millennia in the making, sits in those 9 chairs. The words that praised creation, told the old stories and lulled my ancestors to sleep, rests today in the tongues of 9 very mortal men and women. Each in turn addresses a small group of would-be students. The speaker's eyes blaze as he tells us, we're at the end of the road. We're all that's left. If you young people do not learn, the language will die. The missionaries and the US government will have had their victory at last. A great-grandmother from the circle pushes her walker up close to the microphone. It's not just the words that we lost, she says. The language is the heart of our culture. It holds our thoughts, our way of seeing the world. It's too beautiful for English to explain. So, now my house is spangled with post-it notes in another language, as if I was studying for a trip abroad. But I'm not going away. I'm coming home. Once a week or so, it's my sister from the West Coast who says bozo. Right, so the point is, I want to learn to speak Botswana. And I'm recording this now so that we can see just how bad I was. To call it speaking is a stretch. Really all we do is blurt garbled phrases to each other in a parody of a conversation. How are you? I'm fine. Go to town, see bird, red. Fry bread, good. We sound like Tonto's side of the Hollywood dialogue with the Lone Ranger. Meet right up, good Injun way. On the rare occasion when we can actually string together a halfway coherent thought, we freely insert high school Spanish words to fill the gaps, making a language we call Spanawatomi. Now this is the crux of it. To actually speak, of course, requires verbs. And here is where my kindergarten proficiency at naming things leaves off. English is a noun-based language, somehow appropriate to a culture so obsessed with things. Only 30% of English words are verbs. But in Potawatomi, that proportion is 70%, which means that 70% of the words have to be conjugated, and 70% have different tenses and cases to be mastered. No wonder there's only 9 speakers left. I try, but the complexity makes my head hurt and my ear can barely distinguish between words that mean completely different things. One teacher reassures us that this will come with practice, but another elder concedes that those close similarities are inherent in the language. As Stuart King, a knowledge keeper and great teacher, reminds us, the Creator meant us to laugh, and so humour is deliberately built into the syntax. Even a small slip of the tongue can convert "we need more firewood" to "take off your clothes." In fact, I learned that the mystical word puoi is not only used for mushrooms, but for certain other shafts that rise mysteriously in the night. I remember paging through the Ojibwe dictionary. There are far too many variations on a single word, and I had a feeling that this was just too hard. The threads in my brain knotted, and the harder I tried, the tighter they became. Pages blurred, and I settled on a single word, a verb, of course. To be a Saturday. I threw down the book. Since when is a Saturday a verb? Everyone knows it's a noun. I grabbed the dictionary and flipped more pages, and all kinds of things seemed to be verbs. To be a hill, to be red, to be a long sandy stretch of beach. And then my finger rested on Wikawegma, to be a bay. Ridiculous, I ranted in my head. There's no reason to make it so complicated. No wonder no one speaks it. A cumbersome language, impossible to learn, and more than that, it's all wrong. A bay is most definitely a person, a place, or a thing. A noun, and not a verb. I was ready to give up. I learned a few words, done my duty to the language that was taken from my grandfather. Oh, the ghosts of the missionaries in the boarding schools must have been rubbing their hands in glee at my frustration. She's going to surrender, they said. And then, I swear I heard the zap of synapses firing. An electric current sizzled down my arm and through my finger and practically scorched the page where that one word lay. In that moment, I could smell the water of the bay, watch it rock against the shore and hear it sift onto the sand. A bay is a noun only if water is dead. When bay is a noun, it is defined by humans, trapped between its shores and contained by the word. But the verb wikiwama, to be a bay, releases the water from its bondage and lets it live. To be a bay holds the wonder that, for this moment, the living water has decided to shelter itself between these shores, conversing with cedar roots and a flock of baby mergansers. Because it could do otherwise. Become a stream or an ocean or a waterfall, and there are verbs for that too. To be a hill, to be a sandy beach, to be a Saturday, all are possible verbs in a world where everything is alive. Water, land, even a day. The language a mirror for seeing the animacy of the world, the life that pulses through all things, all pines and nuthatches and mushrooms. This is the language I hear in the woods. This is the language that lets us speak of what wells up all around us. And the vestiges of boarding schools, the soap-wielding missionary wraiths, hang their heads in defeat. This is the grammar of animacy. Imagine seeing your grandmother standing at the stove in her apron and saying of her, "Look, it is making soup. It has grey hair." We might snicker at such a mistake, but we also recoil from it. In English, we never refer to a member of our family, or indeed to any person, as it. That would be a profound act of disrespect. It robs a person of selfhood and kinship, reducing a person to a mere thing. So it is that in Potawatomi and most other indigenous languages, we use the same words to address the living world as we use to our family, because they are our family. Wow. One afternoon, I sat with my field ecology students by a Wikawegma and shared this idea of an animate language. One young man, Andy, splashing his feet in the clear water, asked the big question. Wait a second, he said, as he wrapped his mind around this linguistic distinction. Doesn't that mean speaking English, thinking in English, somehow gives us permission to disrespect nature? By denying everything else the right to be persons, wouldn't things be different if nothing was an it? Andy's right. Learning the grammar of animacy could well be a restraint on our mindless exploitation of land. But there is more to it. I've heard our elders give advice like, you should go among the standing people, or go spend some time with those beaver people. They're reminders of the capacity of others as our teachers, as holders of knowledge, as guides. Imagine walking through a richly inhabited world of birch people, bear people, rock people, beings we think and therefore speak of as persons worthy of our respect, of inclusion in a peopled world. We're reluctant to learn foreign language even of our own species, let alone the language of other species. But imagine the possibilities. Imagine the access we'd have to different perspectives, the things we might see through other eyes, the wisdom that surrounds us. We don't have to figure out everything by ourselves. There are intelligences other than our own, teachers all around us. Imagine how much less lonely the world would be. To become native to this place, if we're to survive here, and our neighbours too, our work is to learn to speak the grammar of animacy, so that we might truly be at home. I remember the words of Bill Tallbull, a Cheyenne elder. As a young person, I spoke to him with heavy heart, lamenting I had no native language with which to speak to the plants and the places that I love. They love to hear the old language, he said, it's true. But, he said, with his fingers on his lips, you don't have to speak it here if you speak it here, he said, patting his chest. They'll hear you. Wow. There you go. A completely different perspective on the natural world. Amazing stuff. Oh, I got such a wet bottom doing that. Ah.